Thank you very much, Kevin, for pointing that out. Okay, hold on. Let's get the mic working here. Okay. Now, Kevin, can I get a confirmation that you can hear me? Everything's working out. Okay, good. Thank you very much for pointing out that the mic was not working. I would have just continued. Okay, so I'll start over. This week, we are continuing a conversation we actually started a couple of weeks ago about Lashon Hara, which means, literally it translates to evil tongue. Great, thanks Kevin, I'm glad to hear the mic is working. It translates to evil tongue, but it doesn't actually mean evil tongue. What Lashon Hara means in, a Jewish... in terms of Jewish law, is the laws about talking about other people. And the reason we're talking about it this week is because in this week's Torah portion, we learn about the story of Miriam and when she spoke badly about Moses and was punished for it. Now, it looks in the book of Numbers, that we'll get to soon, that her actions are innocuous, that she doesn't do anything wrong. She doesn't say anything false about him. She doesn't, spread rumors in the same way that you might think Lashon Hara refers to. But what we're going to learn today is there are different kinds of Lashon Hara, different kinds of ways of talking about people. Each one is prohibited and different from the next. So I thought we would go into it, and for each type of Lashon Hara, of speaking badly about another person, for each type of speaking badly about another person, we're going to share a story about that type of Lashon Hara. Okay, let's get started learning about the different kinds of Lashon Hara. So, Lashon Hara. We'll start with this week's Torah portion, and with the first kind of Lashon Hara, which is called Rechilut. Now, Rechilut is gossip, specifically gossip that is positive and true. So this could be anything from sharing that somebody just got a new job to sharing any basic fact about another person. Now, you might ask yourself, why is something that's positive and true, considered a bad thing? Can I share, things about my friends, just to spread information about them, things that I'm excited about for them? Well, in Jewish law, with some exceptions that we'll get to in another class, the answer is no. We really don't talk about other people. We want to try our hardest to keep our conversations about anything else. So for rechilut, for gossip, and for this kind of Lashon Hara that's positive and true, we're going to study the story about Miriam. That's a picture of Miriam drawn by an artist whose last name was Feuerbach in the 1800s. And Miriam's story is like this. I'll read it straight out of this week's Torah portion. Bamidbar, Numbers, chapter 12. So it says, Miriam and Aaron spoke against Moses regarding the Cushite woman he had married, for he had married a Cushite woman. They said, was it only to Moses that Hashem spoke? Did he not speak to us as well? And God heard. Now Moses was exceedingly humble, more than any person on the face of the earth. And then the story continues where God calls all of them out, and Miriam gets leprosy for what she says about Moses' wife. Now, indeed, Moses' wife Tzipporah was not an Israelite. She here is referred to as a Cushite. And sure, it's true. But it's also gossip. And when you share gossip about another person, you're painting a picture of that person. You don't know how it's going to land on the person who's hearing it. You don't know if they're going to hear it positively or negatively. Maybe if you tell somebody, John got, this new job, maybe they, thought that John was getting another job, or they were relying on John for something else. You don't know how your words about another person, even if positive, are going to impact their image. And we're actually told every day we're supposed to remember Miriam's words and Miriam's basic gossip, and the punishment that she incurred. So, gossip is the first kind of Lashon Hara. Things that are positive and true. This is by far, by the way, the hardest Lashon Hara to stop speaking. And it's why at the end of services, traditionally there are 6 different remembrances that are read, from the Siddur. Remember Shabbat, remember Amalek, remember the day you stood before God at Mount Sinai. And one of them is remember what God did to Miriam in the desert. Because we want to remember that there are consequences for gossip, because gossip is by far the hardest thing to stop. Okay, the second kind of gossip is called, of Lashon Hara, is called Motzi Shem Ra, which means to bring out a bad name. So how is this different from gossip, from Rechilut? It's different because Motzi Shem Ra is negative and false. So this is just a straight lie about another person. And the example we're going to read today comes from the book of Genesis, specifically the story of Joseph and Potiphar's wife. This is a picture of Joseph in the amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. Donny Osmond as Joseph and Joan Collins as Potiphar's wife. In the book of Genesis, you can find this chapter 39. Let's turn to it and read that story. So hold on here. Genesis chapter 39. Okay. And Joseph had been brought down to Egypt. Potiphar, a courtier of Pharaoh, the chamberlain of the butchers, a prominent Egyptian, purchased him from the Ishmaelites who had brought him down there. God was with Joseph, and he became a successful man, and he remained in the house of his Egyptian master. His master perceived that God was with him, and whatever he did, God made him succeed. Joseph found favor in his eyes, and he attended him. He appointed him over his household, and whatever he had, he placed in his custody. So Joseph is purchased by Potiphar, a wealthy Egyptian, and he does such a good job as a slave that he gets promoted to head servant. The story continues, and it happened that from the time he appointed him in his house and over whatever he had, God blessed the Egyptian's house on Joseph's account, so that God's blessing was in whatever he owned, in the house and in the field. He left all that he had in Joseph's custody, and with him present he concerned himself with nothing except the bread he ate. Now Joseph was handsome of form and handsome of appearance. After these things, his master's wife cast her eyes upon Joseph, and she said, "Lie with me." But he adamantly refused. He said to his master's wife, "Look, with me here, my master concerns himself about nothing in the house, and whatever he has, he placed in my custody. There is no one greater in this house than I, and he has denied me nothing but you, since you are his wife. How then can I perpetrate this great evil and have sinned against God?" We're getting to the Motzi Shemra, to the Lashon Hara. Okay. And so it was, just as she coaxed Joseph day after day, so he would not listen to her to lie beside her to be with her. Then there was an opportune day when he entered the house to do his work. No man of the household staff being there in the house, then she caught hold of him by his garment, saying, "Lie with me." But he left his garment in her hand, and he fled, and he went outside. When she saw that he had left his garment in her hand and fled outside, she called out to the men of her household and spoke to them, saying, "Look, he brought us a Hebrew man to sport with us. He came to lie with me, but I called out with a loud scream. And when he heard that I raised my voice and screamed, he left his garment beside me, fled, and went outside." Let's see what happens to Joseph. So that's the lie. She has his jacket, whatever he was wearing, his tunic, and she holds it up and she just shares this straight lie about Joseph, saying he tried to, lie with me, but actually, it was her who was trying to lie with him. And now the consequence is going to be that Joseph is going to be sent to prison. So Motzi Shemra, this, in my opinion, is probably the easiest kind of Lashon Hara to avoid. Because all you have to do is not lie about another person. First of all, you don't mention a person by name unless it's absolutely necessary. And then second, you just don't lie about them. So this one is much easier to avoid than rechilut, than the positive, true gossip. Now, let's look at the last one. And listen, I'm trying out this new software, and it's about to fill up the screen with this chart. Yeah, you can tell me if it's too much, but it's kind of fun to be behind all these words. This last category is Lashon Hara. So Lashon Hara, yes, is a category of Lashon Hara. I know it's confusing because Lashon Hara breaks off into 3, but one of them is actually called Lashon Hara. All of these are forbidden, you shouldn't do. But this one actually bears the title Lashon Hara. And the reason it is different than the others is that this is negative and true. The story that I'm going to mention from the Tanakh that goes along with it is from this guy, from Doeg the Edomite. So we studied about him last time, and if you want to hear more about Doeg the Edomite, you can listen to the first Lashon Hara shiur. I think it's under a lunch and learn called Lashon Hara 1, this being Lashon Hara 2. So, in the meantime, I'm going to take off the Motzi Shemra section here just so you can see me. I'll put it back at the end so you can get a sense of everything. But Lashon Hara is something that's both negative and true. So let's say, needlessly, you share information that a friend of yours did something that's going to make somebody else upset. Like, let's say somebody has a new partner, and then without being prodded and for no apparent reason, you decide just to you gossip, and you say that so and so had a relationship with that partner at some point, or any number of things that might be true, but that might put a strain on between this person and the person to whom you're sharing this information. in the story about Doeg the Edomite depicted here, the story is found in the book of Samuel Aleph. King David he flees Saul, who is afraid that King David is going to overthrow him. Saul is the first king of Israel, and King David is going to become, Saul's predecessor. But Saul wants to kill David, and he hears that David has managed to escape Saul's grasp, and Saul is very upset about this. So King David flees and finds that he's passing through a city called Nod, and there he runs into a priest of the temple who gives him bread for himself and his army, and also weapons for which to fight. Now, that priest presumably might not have known that King David was running away from Saul. King David was Saul's, right-hand guy at this point. He was his musician. He was, one of his, best warriors at that point. So, this guy, Doeg the Edomite, is there too and sees this whole interaction, sees the priest give bread and weapons to David, who's not yet king yet, and helps him on his journey. And so then, later in the story, Saul is kind of going crazy, asking if anybody knows how David could have gotten away. And this guy Doeg raises his hand and says, I know that he went into the town of Nod, and there the priest gave him bread and weapons. Negative in that, he's getting this guy in trouble, and true, the priest did do this. So Saul calls him in and says, how could you have done this? And the priest said, I did not know this was even wrong. Isn't, David your partner here? And so then Saul says that because he helped David, he's going to be put to death along with all of the other priests of that precinct. So nobody wants to kill the priests because they all realize how unjust this death is. And so Saul asks Doeg to kill them by hand. And so this picture, this one over here, is Doeg the Edomite killing the priests whom he tattled on. He's the one who said to Saul, that they helped David. And so now he has to kill them by his own hand. What the story wants to teach us is that Lashon Hara, in a sense, kills the other person. It paints a picture of them unfairly of who they are, to the rest of the world. We kind of mentioned this in the first shiur that, we're made in the image of God, and we call God She'amar v'haya ha'olam. God is the one who spoke and created the world. We have a little bit of God in each of us, and part of the power of our speech is that we don't literally create worlds, but we do create impressions of the world for others. And so that's Doeg the Edomite. And so to review, these are the three kinds of Lashon Hara. And these are the three kinds of Lashon Hara. I'll take myself out so you can get a sense of them. There's Rechilut, speaking about people. That's gossip, things that are positive and true. And Miriam was our paradigm for that. Motzi Shem Ra, saying something that's negative and false, just a straight lie. And Potiphar's wife was our paradigm for that, lying about what Joseph did. And last one is Lashon Hara, sharing something that's negative and true. And for that, Doeg the Edomite was our paradigm. Each one of these things is in my opinion, rechilut being the hardest. Maybe Lashon Hara, could be the hardest. It's possible that Lashon Hara is the hardest, sharing something that's negative and true, because we're all very excited. When we know some like juicy information about somebody, such and such, such and such, this person, I don't even know. I'm very bad. Thank God. I've been very bad at talking about other people for a long time. And so, but you can imagine the kind of things that somebody would say about another person that's negative and true. This person stole something. This person got a DUI. This person, 3 jobs ago did X, Y, and Z. Things that are negative and true that paints a picture of somebody unfairly. The last thing I want to share is in our liturgy, where the idea of Lashon Hara actually comes up. At the end of the Amidah, this is from the Siddur Sim Shalom, we have this prayer, Elohai nitzur lashoni mera, usfatai midaber mirma. This is at the end of the Amidah. This is, a private prayer that we say, and it begins with this line, which means, God, protect my lips, mera, from evil, my tongue from evil, usfatai, and my lips, medaber mirma, from speaking mirma. So from the surface, it looks like, this is redundant. So keep me from sharing bad things and from speaking badly. But actually, if you look at it and you know a little bit about Lashon Hara, this prayer opens up in a different kind of way. Let's, take this first word, mera. It says, Nitzor Lashoni mera, guard my tongue from evil. So mera sounds a lot like Lashon Hara, which, if you remember, Lashon Hara was negative and false. So help me from speaking Lashon Hara, from speaking things about other people that are negative and false. Negative and true for Lashon Hara. I got confused myself there. See, it's very hard to keep track of everything here. Lashon Hara, negative and true. There we go. Now it says it correctly. Let's make the little circle there. Perfect. Okay. God, keep my mouth from speaking Lashon Hara, these things that are negative and true. And then mirma means falsehood. So these are things that are specifically negative and false. So in the end of the Amidah, we actually have a prayer for ourselves for Lashon Hara. God, keep me from speaking Lashon Hara. Keep me from speaking things that are negative and true about other people. And usfatai medaber mirma, and my lips from speaking mirma, which means falsehoods, lies. So things that are negative and false. So you can actually see the categories of Lashon Hara play out, in this liturgy too, where we have Lashon Hara, represented by mera, and we have motzi shem ra, which is saying something negative and false, in mirma. So help me, God, avoid speaking both of these things. So I think that the big takeaway for us today is to recognize that Lashon Hara is more than just Lashon Hara is more than just one. It's more than just one kind of speaking about another person. On a simple level, the Lashon Hara that we, are all most guilty of is rechilut, is speaking about another person, something that's positive and true. This is just called gossip. So-and-so got a new job today. Even things that are not necessarily positive or negative. So-and-so is, traveling to Seattle in a week. Even that is in the category of rechilut, and forbidden to talk about. And the second category, Motzi Shem Ra, was speaking just lies about another person. I think that's the easiest to avoid. And then the last one is saying something that's negative and true. That's also very difficult to avoid. So with all of these, and especially in this week's Torah portion, where we learn about Miriam, and we're told to remember what she did in the desert, and the fact that she spoke Lashon Hara and had such a severe consequence. It's a reminder to us to check our speech, and I think checking our speech looks like admitting that we do this, that we all do this, and then trying to point out those moments we do. So I think it's a great toolkit, knowing the different kinds of Lashon Hara. I'll put it up again in a moment so you can see it. And the more you know about it, the more we're aware of the words we speak, and it helps us to kind of pull back and stop speaking about other people. So with that, I'll take a moment in case there are any questions in the YouTube chat. If not, I'll just put up the chart again so we can see it one more time, and I'll wish everybody a Shavua Tov. We'll wait just a second to see if there's any questions. Alright, everybody, here's that chart again. The different kinds of Lashon Hara, Rechilut, Motzi Shem Ra, Lashon Hara. And then in a future shiur, we can talk about the times when the exceptions to Lashon Hara, those few times when we actually have to talk about others. But for now, wishing you a Shavua Tov, and a week where we can check our speech, and looking forward to our next class. Bye, everybody.